Well,
I'm happy that I didn't understand, that I don't understand Icelandic, so I didn't have to listen to my own old poetry.
it was quite nice actually.
It sounded like music, but I don't know. I don't know what it was.
It was about the ocean.
Yeah, well, you know.
So welcome, nice to meet you. And thanks for coming to the Reykjavik International Film Festival.
Thank you.
And congratulations on your latest film, which will premiere at the festival tomorrow. So probably the audience here today hasn't seen it, but hopefully they all will. Maybe it's unfair, but it would be interesting sort of to start us off to hear a little bit about this new film and, you know, how it came about.
Well, that's always the most difficult questions. First, I don't ever really know why I do what I do, and that's. I'm a very confused person. I woke up this morning believing that I was today going to go on a Bobby Fischer sightseeing, which I'm actually going to do tomorrow. So today I had no idea that I was going to take part in a Masterclass. I thought, well, that was a couple of days later. And I think that so I walked around in my hotel room feeling a little bit like Bobby Fischer, when he was playing the World Championship here, who also walked around in his hotel room waiting for a car to come and pick him up to take him to some arena. I'm not comparing myself to Bobby Fischer, but I think that what I want to say is something like that I'm very confused and I don't really know why I do the things I do. And I think that this is one of the reasons why I continue to do things that I really don't, because I feel like I'm very much an amateur, and I want to, because if I felt that I would have at some point made something that I felt was finished or perfect, or then I would do like Bobby Fischer, I would stop playing chess, or in my case stop making movies, because then it would be over. So the reason why I continue to do things is that I always feel that I failed, and the force to continue is also very irrational, and I think that is something that we could talk about a little bit.
Yeah, great.
Irrationality and confusion, and that as a film director or as an artist in general, I think it's important to protect your own confusion and not try to turn yourself into too much of an irrational person, but to try to be guided by amateurism, actually. Mm-hmm. Because amateur means that you love something. The word amateur means loving, a lover of something. And then I just think that there is a difference between an amateur who doesn't change and an amateur who is capable of changing. Because an amateur who picks up, paints something and the first time says, wow, this is wonderful, that's not the kind of amateurism I'm interested in. I'm interested in the kind of amateurism where you are questioning yourself and asking yourself, saying to yourself that next time I want to do something better.
Wow, that's good. So you don't wake up saying, oh, I'm a film director, I must make a film.
No, I wake up thinking I'm Bobby Fischer. Yeah.
Why do you like Bobby so much?
Well, I'm not sure if I like him actually. He was probably a very difficult person. He was a difficult person. And I'm just very interested in things where people go very far, and where people go maybe too far, and where people go to the limit of something. And then I'm in general very interested in chess, and I was very interested in chess, especially a couple of years ago, when I played all the time, but I never really had any talent for it, so I never got good. I took lessons and everything, and I played sort of 8 to 10 hours every day.
Wow.
Yeah, but I never really got beyond a very low level.
Okay. But you still play?
No, I had to stop one day because it took too much time. I couldn't work, I couldn't write anything because I was just playing chess the whole time. So it became an obsession, so I knew that I had to stop, like cold turkey, I had to stop from one day to another. So from after that I haven't really, well, maybe once or twice with my son, but otherwise it became too much of an obsession.
Yeah. For Bobby, kind of chess became like an obsession.
But the difference is that he had the talent.
But I mean, your talent obviously lies elsewhere, but in a similar obsessive kind of thing, which is making films.
Yeah, well, I don't know, but I think
it does. I'm telling you.
I think amateurism and obsession, if they go hand in hand, then it's a good combination.
Mm-hmm. You told me before that you don't really watch a lot of films.
No.
Do you watch television?
A little bit, yes.
What do you watch on television?
Big Bang Theory.
Ah, okay. So you like that kind of format? It's kind of easy to... Were you a nerd when you were young?
No, well, both yes and no, I don't know. I think I was, I don't know what that word means really. No. I was someone who... I think I was a combination of things, as we all are. So I think I was both someone who decided very early to write poetry and to write things. But at the same time, I think I was quite normal in many ways. And I sort of I wanted to go to parties and I wanted some girl to fall in love with me and to get drunk and things like that also. So I think I was a combination.
Yeah. You said somewhere that in the beginning you started out as a poet, but there were many other things that you wanted to become, like a lawyer and things like that. But you kind of went that way to make films, went into filmmaking. Mm-hmm. Do you consider it still an accident that you make films? Or?
No, well, not an accident. I think I sort of have some kind of capability of making films, but I still feel very much like I don't really know how to make films, and I think that's a really good force to continue to make them, as I said. And I think this is a sort of, I don't know if there are any people here who want to make films, or who make films, or who go to film schools or anything like that, but I found it, in the last couple of years, I found it quite interesting to teach a little bit. So I was a guest professor at the film school in Helsinki in Finland, and I felt that there is at film schools, or if you talk about film in general, I think there is there are so many different ways to make movies. I'm not saying that I have the answer to how to make movies in general, but for me, I think it's a little bit forgotten thing that I think filmmaking has become a little bit too rational and too much based on that there are certain rules that you have to follow, especially when it comes to dramaturgy and so on. And I just feel that filmmaking is such a intuitive process as well.
Mm-hmm. So how did that work out then? Teaching?
Well, teaching it works out really fine because but I just feel like I was there for 3 or 4 months and I followed a couple of students for some time, and it was really nice to sort of follow their projects and to stand in the background because it's such a lot of anxiety in making a movie, so it was really nice to stand in the background and let some other people sweat and make them make the difficult decisions, and I would just stand in the background and say, now you're doing it wrong or something. That was just really nice. Let me give you an example of what I think is quite important when I talk about irrationality. It's something like, for me, it's very important to make certain decisions based on what I feel, where I so like I cannot really work with, for example, an ugly camera.
Okay.
So the look of the camera itself is very important for me. So that was one of the most important decisions behind making, when I was making my latest movie, We Are the Best. It was like the decision of what camera to work with. And it was very much based on the nationality of the camera and the look of the camera and so on. And I think, that's really, in many ways, a very irrational thing to spend time with. I spent a lot of time thinking about just looking at the cameras. And because I felt that I needed to have sort of a connection with the camera, because the camera is sort of like a continuation of myself. It's a link between me and the actors. It sounds maybe, very irrational and quite silly and a bit confused and everything, but so I think those things are very important. And it's important what kind of tea I get. So I was very important to get the right tea.
Oh.
And very important, my first lesson when I was in Finland, when I taught the students, was it's very important to make sure that the actors get coffee when they want coffee, and water when they want water, and to always make sure that there's a lot of fruit. So things like that I think are more important than because if you are dealing with those things which are very concrete, like what camera to use, what coffee to buy, and so on, then I think in the process of that you sort of start with all the other things about the more serious things, like the theme of the film or things like that. They are constantly working in the back of your head. So it's not like you're forgetting about what you want, what kind of story you want to tell or something like that. It's just that it's working somewhere else on a deeper level, hopefully.
Yeah. So the circumstances probably comfortable. What kind of camera did you use? I think people want to know that.
Yes, I think that's actually quite interesting, because one camera that I definitely didn't want to use is the Alexa camera, because of the looks of the camera, not necessarily because of the looks of the material, but it's just too square, so I couldn't really work with that. And then in general I wanted to work with something, but I really wanted to work with the alot camera again, because I had worked with an alot camera before, and I also felt that I needed some kind of French atmosphere on this film, and it's a French camera. Okay. And I just wanted sort of something sublime, rather than something like a tractor, which the Ari camera is much more like a tractor.
Yeah, it looks like a tractor.
Yeah. But then at the same time, the big problem was that the French sublime camera, it actually died when we were filming snow, because it couldn't, the temperature became too low. So in the end, the German tractor camera won, but that was not the Alexa camera, but just the Ari 535 camera. So that was a bit of a crisis for me, actually, on some level, to find out that actually the French camera didn't really work out in Swedish climate. So for anyone working in Iceland, I would not suggest that you work with alot. I would suggest that you work with Ari, unfortunately.
Do you operate a lot on your films?
No, well, sometimes a little bit. But no, I haven't. I work with a DOP. But I would like to work more with the camera myself, so maybe next time.
Are you like a camera freak, like Kubrick or someone like that?
No, not really like that. Well, no, not like that. I'm sort of, no. Sometimes, yes, but no, not all the time. I don't think I'm not a very technical director in general. It's just that I have some certain ideas that I can't really change. They have to be. But then also, I mean, 35. I don't know. I understand that maybe it's difficult to work on 35 today, and also especially maybe here in Iceland because it's sort of difficult with the laboratories and everything. So I guess maybe everything here is made digitally. But there is something you win a lot of things, but you lose a lot of things as well because 35 is just wonderful, and 60mm also is still working. I mean, at least in Sweden, there is actually a new laboratory in Sweden that just opened maybe 2 or 3 years ago, which is new, where they actually develop film and so on. So I think that analog film is not dead yet.
Okay, great. Because the tradition in Iceland is that, you know, when we started making films, they were made on film 35, and you had to pay Ankarstjarni first. So, you know, the lab always got the money, but the crew never got paid.
Okay,
so
well,
that's
not good.
So that's why I think people like digital more.
Well, I would like to try it next time. It depends on what story you have, because 35, if you work on 35, it gives a lot of more concentration. Because you know that once you start the camera, it costs money, and also you have just a limit. You know, you have this amount of film in the refrigerator, and that creates a concentration with the actors and with the crew and everything. But when you're filming something digitally, you can shoot as much as you want, more or less. I mean, not completely, but so that's sort of. I think that many directors and producers and so on believe that the freedom you get from working digitally is actually just good. But it also has a problem that it takes away some of the concentration. Because when I know that I have, as a director, I have to make the decisions that now I'm making something that's quite simple. This actor is going to walk from this door to this door. And then I say that, okay, I can only do this 3 times because I need more film to make the scene where the same actor is going to cry or something. And I think that's just important to sort of like not treat all the scenes in the same way, but you know that there's a hierarchy of scenes that some are more important than others. But next time I would like to actually make a film digitally, because I want to try that freedom that I've never really tried very much. So I would like to sort of see what happens when I get kind of freedom. But then I would like to work with a smaller camera. I'm interested in that American camera, the Black Magic camera. Black Magic pocket camera, but I don't really know. So maybe too much talk about cameras.
I don't know, but this was just to start this off. I think now would be a good time to take questions from the audience.
Yes. It's a pity that you haven't seen my latest film, because it's quite good actually. I don't really like any of the other films. I'm very self-critical, but anyway, I'll talk in general. I think there are. I think as a director, I have to. It's very different processes. This falls all the time. There's one process that is about sitting alone in a room and thinking and feeling and writing down things, and that's a very lonesome thing, because then it's just me, and then I have to turn into someone else and be the director who has to work in a group of people, and to work, sort of rely very much on the skill of other people, which I do a lot. So the director has to sort of be quite disrespectful of the writer, even though it's the same person. And then I have to, when I'm editing in the end, I have to be very disrespectful of the director as well. So 2 times I have to sort of like forget about everything all the decisions I made, I have to sort of forget about them. Because when I'm writing a scene, I can feel like, wow, this is a wonderful scene, and then I come to the set, and when I work with the actors, and it doesn't work out. And if I'm at that moment sort of stuck with the idea that this is a great scene, then I will just film a bad scene, because if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. And the same thing with the editing. If I don't really disrespect the director, then I sort of get stuck with bad scenes again, because when I'm directing, I feel that this scene is working out really wonderfully, and then in the editing room, I just have to sort of face the fact that it didn't work out. I have no idea if that was an answer to your question, but maybe, partly.
Yeah.
Well, not necessarily teenage girls, but I don't know. I think there are a lot of, there are different movies. A Hole in My Heart is about, well, it's cast of 75% men and 25% women, so I think there are differences. But I think in general, maybe it's true that I identify easier with women than with men, but that's also very generalizing, because there are some really nice men in the world as well. But in general, I think I feel closer to like my grandmother than to my grandfather, because my grandfather, he knew how to drive a tractor, and he knew how to drive a car, and he knew how to use things that I don't know how to use, because I feel more like someone who waters plants and care about tea and things like that. So, but that's, so the traditional, men are very different. There are lots of, but the traditional masculinity is something that I have difficulty relating to. In general, but always exceptions. In this case, with my new movie, it's actually, since you haven't seen it, but it's about three girls who start a punk band in 1982, and the film is based on a book called Aldrig Godnatt, Never Good Night, by my wife, and it's actually quite autobiographical. It's about her own childhood and about the punk band that she started. So it's actually a true story, or 80% true, because I changed a lot of things, but 80% maybe true. So in this case, it's sort of like, it wasn't really my own decision. It was a decision that was made. Well, I couldn't change it really.
I have another question. I read somewhere that your new film is based on a comic or something by your wife. Did she
Yes.
work with you on the script?
No, not. It's my wife's book, and it's a graphic novel, I think is the word in English. So it's quite big book with text and pictures. Yes. But it's she didn't really work on the script. She gave me more or less free hands to do what I wanted to do. But then I always call her and ask her, but more about details like what clothes should they have and things like that. When I just feel like I don't know what to do, then I call her. But well, I talked about being disrespectful before, and I think that's the same thing. I had to sort of be disrespectful of her story, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to turn it into my own story. The hair?
Yeah.
Have you seen the film?
Yes.
Okay. Well, yeah, well, I don't know, but most of you haven't seen the film, right? So,
No.
so maybe, well, yeah, you'll see it tomorrow. I think it goes back very much to what I said about sort of how you make sure that people feel comfortable drinking coffee and water and fruit, and not too much candy because that's not good. And so I think that as a director, the most important thing I can do is to create an atmosphere where people feel comfortable and feel free to try things and feel free to fail and not always do perfect things. And this is both with grown-up actors and with children and also with the team in general. I mean, so I think that's just to create a safe environment, and then to have sort of some kind of enthusiastic thing that you sort of where you feel that you're playing or it's a game more than it's really very, very serious. So even when I'm doing very serious scenes like, well, I don't know, someone crying or something, I always try at least to make it in a sort of not a very serious way when we're working with it. Yeah. That depends on what you mean with rehearsing, but no, not really. I do something that you might call rehearsing when I'm doing auditions, because the auditions for me takes quite a long time, especially with this latest film. It took a very long time, and then sort of like we do some of the scenes over and over again, but sort of in a very improvised way. But then I don't really rehearse very much, because I feel that there's always a risk that when you rehearse something, that you actually get the best result the first time, and then if you don't have a camera recording that, then it's lost. So I try, well, sometimes I just feel that for everyone, for the technical department, for the sound department, for everyone, they want the rehearsal, they want to sort of know what's going to happen. So sometimes we do something called like, we film it, but we call it the rehearsal, just to make everyone sort of even more so like feeling that it's okay to sort of have the microphone suddenly dip down or something. So it's like rehearsal, but I still want to capture the moment. So I don't rehearse a lot, but I improvise a lot, and I try to let the actors always have a lot of freedom to change things and so on. It changes a little bit from scene to scene, but in some scenes I want them to be closer to the script, but most of the time I want them to feel free. And especially technically, when I'm sitting here, I feel that it's not a problem really for me that there is a camera over there, but if the camera was here, I would feel very annoyed by it. And I think that's something that I also try to do. I try to keep the camera a little bit away, and have a camera that is very curious, which means that's like zooming and panning a lot, and sort of trying to find where things happen, but not really a camera that runs around in the middle and takes a lot of place. So I think I just want actors to feel like they don't have a camera in their face. Well, in general, I'm a person, but then I have to say that, I mean, there are different ways of making movies, and I also really like straight stories. So I'm not saying that so I'm not an expert in general, but when I'm working, I feel that I'm much more interested in details rather than in stories. I'm not really interested in stories, or at least I'm not very interested in stories that start at this point and end at this point and everything goes in a straight line. At the moment I'm reading Alice Munro, the Canadian short story writer, and I think there is something really nice that she said, that she doesn't want the story to be like a road, which sort of goes like this, but more like a house, where you sort of walk into a house and you walk from one room to another room and you open doors, and you sort of like you're also able to walk back and open another door again. And I think that's just much more closer to the way I look at the world, because I rarely feel that the stories I experience in my real life are like that. They're more like going back and forth and so like walking around in a house. So I'm more interested in, I think, in creating a universe rather than telling a story. But then, of course, I want some kind of, dramatic elements. So I'm not saying that all films should be completely experimental or something like that. I think, I like a lot of different movies, so. But I try not to think too much about the story, actually. Or actually, the opposite. I try to think more about the story, but it doesn't come natural for me. What comes naturally for me is to think about the details. Like, even smallest details, like what brand of a guitar should they play on in this scene, and I can sort of like spend a week thinking about what brand of a guitar they should play on. And then after that week, I feel like I'm the most stupid person in the world because it doesn't really make sense. But maybe in that week, I also thought about something else that was good. Maybe not. But I feel a bit bad. I think I should sort of think more about the story, actually. Well, that's two really big questions, actually. Maybe I start with your second question. I think as a human being, it's a wonderful thing to feel understood. That's one of the most wonderful things. As an artist, well, I can say, okay, I was in Venice with this latest film at the film festival in Venice, and I had told the actors, and also my children were there as well with me, so I told everybody that film festivals can be terrible, because film festivals can be like 3 people in the audience and they boo in the end, and then you go to a press conference and everybody just asks really, really negative questions. And so that was what they were prepared for. And then we just came to the big theater, and everyone was actually laughing and applauding, and it actually was a big success, and it was nothing like I had described it. And as a human being, it felt really wonderful because it really was a feeling that we were understood. People actually understood the film very easily, and they seemed to like it very much. So on a human level, that's nice. But as an artist, it's also quite nice to do the opposite, because I've also been to places where people have actually booed, and that also felt quite nice. Because afterwards, one person came to me and said that I don't really agree with those people. I actually felt it was a good film. So maybe sometimes it's better to have one person like what you do rather than a whole theater full of people. I'm always a bit skeptical. As a director, I'm a bit skeptical of films where everybody seems to have the same opinion. So when I read reviews of a film where everybody says this is a masterpiece, then I sort of get really, really skeptical and think that there's probably something wrong with it. Because I feel like we are very different. We have so many things in common, human beings, but we also are quite different. And when everybody feels the same thing, for me that's sort of like close to psychosis. So actually I felt very understood. With this film I felt actually quite understood, that people appreciate and understand what I am trying to say, and that has felt nice, but I'm not sure if it's the reaction that I like the most. How I choose the actors? Through a long process of auditions, when they come a lot of times, and do a lot of improvisations, and in the end with this film it's strange because we actually in the end decided on the actors that I intuitively in the beginning liked the most. So it felt like we had sort of spent half a year for nothing, but it just felt that it was necessary still to sort of like just maybe there were some other actors who were better or something. And yeah, was that an answer? There are times when you need to talk about some things, and then there are times when you need to talk about other things. And there are times when you need to speak in a very angry voice, and then there are times when you need to speak in a very humble voice or a very low voice. And sometimes I feel that I'm actually doing the opposite. Not the opposite, but when I feel really good about my life, then it's easier for me to be angry, because then it's easier for me to care about things in that. So some of the angriest films I made were actually made when I was feeling quite good in a strange way. And I'm not sure if I had a plan that I wanted to. I think I felt that I wanted to sort of create some kind of conflict with some of the films that I made. I mean, for example, one of the films that is showing here at the festival is called Container, and it's really a film that nobody really likes, or very, very few people like. And another film like A Hole in My Heart, which is also a film very few people like. Well, it's not shown here now, but that's really about the porn industry and so on. And I don't think I had a plan with it. I think I just had to I had to scream about something that I was feeling myself. And so it was more. But then the opposite can also happen because with this film, We Are the Best, which is not at all about violence or anything. It's a very happy movie. It's a really funny movie, I hope at least. I mean, a lot of people laugh at it. And it's not really maybe comedy, but it's funny and it's very hopeful and very optimistic and everything. I think, strangely enough, that movie came out of a feeling that there were a lot of bad things happening around me. Not necessarily in my own life, but around me, people I knew, that sort of bad things happening. And I felt that this time is the moment when I really want to do something that is happy, because I want to, make something that people can have a nice night, 1 hour and 45 minutes of optimism instead of that kind of screaming that I sometimes do. So there's a
when
time.
you're screaming, are you trying to change society with your screaming?
No, I'm trying to change myself. I think I'm trying to just scream to be honest to myself, and I think the only film I actually made with some kind of agenda, but not completely, but that was probably Lilia Forever, which is about trafficking, and then I really felt that I had a sort of an obligation to state these things, that this actually happens, but that was also a very personal thing, because it was just a girl who actually died not quite close to where I live in Malmö. And I just felt that I didn't know about her, of course, when she was alive, and but I just felt that I had some kind of obligation to speak about what had happened close to myself. So, in a way, it was very personal, but in a way, I guess I also wanted people to see things, yes. Yeah. And I was really happy not happy, but it felt good when I realized that it was sort of a film that was screening in Moldavia or Moldova, or is it more called Moldova in English? Yeah. And things like that. So I'm happy when things happen with my films, but I don't really take part in planning those things. I'm really happy when the unexpected things happen with my movies. Well, I think explaining is not really a good thing to do in general. I don't know.
Can you give me something?
Yeah, well. No. I think that art in general is always a meeting between the work of art and whoever sees it, and I think that No, I don't think I should. I don't think I'm the person who should explain things now. I also think that that's a movie that's really where there are a lot of people, or not a lot of people, but I sometimes meet people who say that something like what you said, that I am the only one who like this movie. So there must be some people, but I actually just a week ago someone else said almost the same thing, and she said that and I also met some people who said that they really hated that movie. But then they sort of started to think about it, and the movie started to live a life of its own in their heads, sort of. And that it sort of like continued to be there. But I don't know. I think that's that would make me happy if people continue to think about things and if. I'd also have to say that I don't think it's a perfect movie because I haven't really made any perfect movies because it's just I just try to do things, and when I look back at it, I feel that there are some really embarrassing and bad things in it, and then there are also some things that I like a lot about it, and yeah. Next.
Do you understand the question?
Yeah, well, we are all imperfect, and it's very rarely that someone makes something perfect. It's sort of like doesn't really happen. So you can strive for it. You can have a goal, or you can. So I'm not saying that we should strive to be imperfect. We should, of course, try to do the best we can, of course. But then we also just have to know that we will fail over and over again, and it will be. And I really like voices in music or in cinema or in literature or in life in general who try to tell me something, but sort of try, but they don't really necessarily succeed. And you know, it's like voices. If you listen to someone who's singing, we don't really want to listen to perfect voices because that's not really interesting. We want to listen to voices that are strong and powerful, but also where there is something broken or sad or something at the same time. Because if it's just strong, then it's not interesting. So, yeah.
I wanted to ask you about the music in your films.
Mm-hmm.
You use music in a very distinctive way.
Yeah.
So, what kind of music do you like?
I like a lot of music, and I think music has been very important for me in my life. And I think that especially with the movie that you haven't seen, most of you, that's showing tomorrow. It's actually a movie where a lot of the music that I listened to when I was 12 or 13 years old is actually in the movie, which is just a dream come true because it's the music that I grew up with, Swedish punk from 1980 or something like that, and it's just wonderful to me. And I was so nervous when we asked those bands if they wanted the music to be, and they said yes, and then otherwise it would have been really tragic because I don't know what we would have done. So there's like a song which they talk about in the movie, and they said that this is the best song ever made. This is the best song in the world, and it's just exactly what I felt myself. So but it's always important. But I sometimes feel like it's a bit like cheating. With this movie, this is a movie. Via Best, it's actually a movie about music very much. And it's also actually in many ways a movie about making art, because they sort of like it's very. So I think it's about many things. But in one of the themes in the film is actually sort of like how these young girls start making art. How that art is actually a very straightforward reaction to something that happens to them. They have a gym teacher who is stupid, and then they have some boys who sort of say stupid things to them, and they sort of like get angry at that, and that turns into music actually. So as a very direct approach to things you meet in your life, you sort of as Morrissey sings in some of his, in one of his songs, it's like sing your life.
So that's close to the punk philosophy of just doing things.
Yeah, and I think that's also something to do with imperfection. Actually, it's about sort of that. I feel like I feel very proud of that I more or less always achieve. If I decide to do something, I more or less always do that thing. It doesn't really get as good as I wanted it to get, but at least I do it. I think that comes from growing up with punk music, maybe. I just have sort of feel like I have an engine inside me that says, if I want to do a movie about this, I will make it. Afterwards, I feel like it's very imperfect, and it's so like sometimes really bad, and I don't want to explain it, and so on, but it's like I still made the movie.
So you don't watch your films?
No. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I mean, it's a bit like reading Dostoevsky. You wouldn't really want him to change things, but it's like sometimes you realize. I mean, some of his books are just too long. I mean, it's just, and that's a really serious imperfection. But at the same time, you wouldn't really ask him to sort of like, could you make it a little shorter? So you sort of take the good with the bad, yeah. And I think people who really try to polish things too much, they fail in a much worse category. They fail that's sort of...
That's maybe what you said about punk, or about singing.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't have to sound perfect, but the energy of kind of creativity is there. A bit raw, maybe.
Yeah.
One final question, maybe, or...
Well, I understand the question, but it's just very difficult to answer because it's very different from time to time. It's a lot of anxiety and a lot of fear and pain and everything, and so because there is always the fear of the white paper that you have to start something from the beginning, and it's really difficult process. And most of the time, I think with Ingmar Bergman, one of his movies started with him wanting to make a movie with two women on a beach with big hats, and so that's a bit like what it's like for me. It's like it's all the other things. I mean, I can think very much about this and that and this and that and this and that. I can make a plan, and sometimes I really make a big plan. But then in the end, actually, the decision boils down to something very, very simple. Like with this movie that I just made now, it just felt like I had a lot of different ideas in my head. I wrote 2 novels and I wanted to make so many different things. But the real reason why I made this movie Via Best is actually I wanted to make something that was small, funny, optimistic, and a project that would feel simple to work with. I just wanted something where I felt this will be nice to go to work every day. Because I don't want something heavy, I want something in my life that is fun and light and simple and maybe a little bit childish this time. Because last time I made a movie, Mammoth was just a very, very heavy project and it took too long time and it was just so... Sometimes it's like I decide something, on a very, not maybe with the right reasons, but just because, not a good answer. So we're finishing this with a bad answer, so that's
with an honest answer.
That's a good end to it, I guess.
Lucas Moodyson, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.